Hey Jessica, how you doing? All right, let's go take a look. Thank you so much for submitting your work. I see you've got two different submissions here. One is a description. I will go ahead and take a look at that. We'll address the questions in there, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the actual mock-up itself. I think you have a couple of questions here too. Sort of familiar with InDesign. That's pretty normal for this class. A lot of students are learning InDesign for the very first time, and it's really normal in this type of um, typography class. And quite often, students will learn type and layout in conjunction with one another in the same class. And quite often, that class is called type and layout, like this one is called. So it's not unusual to learn the basics of InDesign while learning the basics of typography. So you're right in there. So nothing unusual here. So let's go ahead and jump right over to your writing, and I want to address some of your questions here. So I'm going to see some comments I'm going to think of adding. I wanted to ask a few questions. I'm going to change the font color. I don't recommend that. I think that quite often we see these font colors. We see the font as a combination of white or very dark gray on a, I'm sorry, black or very dark gray on a white background. And the reason is because it provides ample contrast, almost perfect contrast for reading. And that's why we quite often see black text on a white background. Adding color can do a lot of different things. It can change the dynamics of the contrast associated with the page, and effectively could impede effective readability and legibility. So for those reasons, I don't recommend at this point changing the color of the text. You talk about wanting to add color boxes behind the text. Again, I do not recommend that, because that's going to create a degree of separation between the text and the actual page itself. Now you want a nice synergistic, a nice reciprocal relationship between the type and the text. By placing type in a color background, you're basically creating a separation from the page, and you're in essence telling the viewer that there's not a direct relationship between the contents of the page and whatever sections are have a color background. And as you can see intuitively, it's because there's a little bit of a separation. That area is being treated differently. For that reason, I do not recommend. So again, in summary, I don't recommend changing the color of the type itself, and I don't recommend placing color boxes behind the text. These little color boxes, these gray stripes in between your paragraphs, again, it's really super distracting. I do not recommend that either. Okay, second question is borrowing photos from other sites. You can just go ahead and include your image credits right here in your comments area for your submission, and that'll be fine. Okay, so going to change this photo, so that would be your headline area. We talked about the color, boxes behind the type. This, I like the background to match the gray column. So you want to place gray. Again, I don't recommend putting boxes behind things. And then this seems like this is a web treatment right here. So you can't really change that. I would recommend for your byline, that's where you say the article is by and then you name the author. I would just come over here and I would assemble it right up here. I've got a few examples for you to look at, and I'm going to open one of those right now. Okay, so when I take a look at the layout, the main thing I'm seeing is it's very, very text heavy. You've got this little tiny headline area. There's no byline, so it's not by so-and-so, the name of the person who wrote the article. And that, to a high degree, can be a very interesting typographic treatment for any page at all. The title area. Let me show you some examples. Okay, this is a title area right here. See how this is? It's a little bigger. We got some great hierarchy here. So this is a nice title area, nice headline. Then we have a by, so the text is by. And then we have a deck head, which is like, it's a little introductory paragraph that brings us into the body copy, kind of introducing what's to be expected in the article. Okay, and then over here we see a couple of other really interesting treatments here. This again, and the reason I say this is because I would really like you to think about enhancing your title area, maybe even spanning it 2 columns like this. Nice 2-column. Headline and then a deck head. So again, that's that introductory period. Here's your byline right here. And you don't necessarily want to center align these, but try to make them work well with the layout that you have, this 2-column double spread layout that you already have. So again, I would just really try to create a nice visible headline area, and then a deck head, which again is that little introductory paragraph. Then it's a really neat technique to come into your body copy and introduce your body copy using a drop cap. Here's a drop cap right here. And again, it's a three lines deep, and just do some quick research and say, how do I set up a drop cap in InDesign? Really simple to do. At that point, I would recommend maybe even adding a couple of pull quotes. And this image right here, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's an image of a bell, and I'm just not seeing any reason for that bell being there. Now, if you want to describe that to me, maybe go ahead and let me know what the relevance and significance of that bell is. But right now, I don't see it as a pertinent part of the magazine itself, the layout itself. So you got your image, then your nice headline area, nice subhead, nice deck head, drop cap introduced into the paragraph. So really, after you have your image and your headline area, you might not even start your text till way down here on the first page. And we see that again right here, how this type doesn't really start till way down, almost to 2/3 down the way the page itself. Now, and then in the right-hand column, you can see some really interesting technique here. This is called a pull quote, and basically it's just grabbing a quote out of the type itself and spanning it a couple of columns and really working on typographic hierarchy to draw attention to that area. So it also reinforces the information presented, but it also gives the viewer a little rest area. And I think that's really important. One of the things I'm not seeing in your work is expeditious use of negative space. So you could introduce a couple of images, one more image maybe, and a pull quote, along with that headline area and the introduction, deck head, and the byline. As far as typography goes, I think you're set up pretty good here. Good. There's only really one mistake I'm seeing. It's right there. That's a typographic widow, and that's a word that's located on a sentence alone, typically at the end of a paragraph. You don't want that. Other than that, I think we're looking pretty good in terms of layout, creating meaning. So you definitely want to try to work some sort of typographic variety in here. So typically the way we do that is we use a nice sans serif for the headline, or a sans serif for the headline and then serif for the body copy, or conversely, serif for the headline and a sans serif for the body copy. Okay, so I've given you a lot to think about. I know I have. And if you have any questions at all, please let me know. But at this point, just keep working. And I think the most, oh, you know what? Here's another typographic widow right there. So you want to fix that. So I think that at this point, one of the things I would recommend is getting out there and really doing as much visual research as you possibly can. And that does include jumping out into lynda.com and taking a look at designing magazine article titles in there. Okay, so as I said, really good start. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if I can provide any clarification on anything I said in this video, please let me know. I'll be glad to do so. And it's really super important that you get with me quickly with questions. As you know, you won't be waiting for me for questions. I'm in every day. So if you have a question, go ahead and post it. I'll get a response to you immediately. All right, so fantastic start. Jessica, thank you so much for sharing. And again, please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you very much.